I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my soul, the moment at my wife's sister's wedding when I was treated like a nobody. In those first 100 heartbeats, every dream I had cherished, every hope for belonging, shattered into a cascade of humiliation and disbelief. Amid laughter and celebration, I was cast aside, a ghost in the midst of joy. Their dismissive glances and whispered snickers burned into my memory, igniting a fierce, unyielding resolve. I would not be defined by their scorn. I left that wedding, clutching the gift she'd once given me, determined to reclaim every ounce of my self-worth. For as long as I can remember, I had believed that family was a sanctuary, a place where you could find acceptance even in your imperfections. I had always prided myself on my ability to support those I loved, to be the quiet pillar in times of need. I worked hard to contribute, both emotionally and financially, to the relationships I valued. When my wife and I married, I dreamed of building a life of unity and respect. I thought that at family gatherings, even if I were not the center of attention, I would at least be acknowledged, valued for who I was. I put my trust in the bonds we shared, expecting loyalty and warmth in return for my loyalty and sacrifices. That fateful day, however, unraveled my assumptions in a way I never anticipated. The wedding was held in a grand, airy hall adorned with twinkling lights and elegant floral arrangements. Laughter filled the room, and the air buzzed with excitement as relatives celebrated the union of my wife's sister, a joyous occasion meant to honor love and family. I arrived with a heart full of hope, proud to stand by my wife's side as part of this extended family. I believed that even if I were not the life of the party, my presence would be respected and valued. But from the moment I walked through the doors, something was off. I noticed subtle, dismissive glances exchanged between some relatives, glances that seemed to say I wasn't really part of their world. As the ceremony unfolded, I sat quietly, trying to smile and blend into the background. However, during the reception, when the time came for speeches and toasts, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. My wife's sister, radiant in her wedding gown, was showered with praise and admiration. One by one, her family members recounted stories of her kindness, achievements, and the special bond they shared. Then, as if to punctuate the celebration, someone offhandedly remarked that I was just an extra, an unimportant bystander in a family that was supposed to be united. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. In that instant, I felt the crushing weight of exclusion. I was not only ignored, I was deliberately diminished in front of everyone. I tried to remain composed, swallowing the bitter cocktail of humiliation and hurt. I attempted to engage in small talk and offer a polite smile when spoken to, but every interaction reminded me of that degrading label. My wife, caught up in the whirlwind of the celebration, seemed oblivious to the subtle mockery that permeated the room. I felt isolated in a sea of relatives who, without a word, were collectively deciding that I was unworthy of acknowledgement. The betrayal wasn't just in the exclusion, it was in the fact that those people who I had once believed were family, treated me as an outsider, as if my presence were an inconvenience. The final blow came during the gift exchange. I had received an expensive gift from my wife, one that I had given with love and trust, a symbol of our commitment. As the host called for the exchange of gifts among the guests, I stepped forward, expecting at least a nod of gratitude. Instead, I was met with indifference. In a final act of defiance, overwhelmed by the sting of rejection, I gathered my belongings, including that once cherished gift, and left the celebration abruptly. The walk to my car was a blur of emotions, each step an assertion that I would no longer allow myself to be diminished. In that moment, I made a silent vow. I would reclaim my worth, rebuild my life, and show them all that being treated like a nobody would be the very fuel for my extraordinary comeback. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment, the soft hum of the city outside mingling with the heavy silence of my thoughts. I opened my journal and began to write, my pen capturing every surge of emotion, the pain, the anger, the profound sense of betrayal, and above all, the spark of determination that was slowly taking root within me. I wrote about every sacrifice I had made, every long hour spent working with the belief that I was building a future together, and how each of those moments now felt like a stepping stone that would propel me to heights I never dreamed possible. In those early tear-stained pages, I resolved that I would no longer be defined by the shallow judgments of a family that refused to see my value. I vowed to reclaim my dignity and prove that my worth was measured not by their dismissive glances, but by the unwavering pursuit of my own dreams. With each word I wrote, I felt a flicker of empowerment ignite within me. The betrayal that had once left me feeling invisible now became the catalyst for transformation. I began to plot a course for my future, A path where I would harness every ounce of my pain and channel it into a journey of self-rediscovery and professional triumph. I pictured a life where my success would speak volumes, where my hard work would be recognized and celebrated, and where I would no longer be confined to the margins of someone else's approval. That night marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life, a chapter where I would no longer be an afterthought, but the main protagonist in the story of my own destiny. In the turbulent days that followed that fateful wedding, when the sting of being treated like a nobody still clung to my skin like a second layer, I found myself caught in a relentless struggle between grief and determination. Every morning I woke with the ghost of that humiliating moment echoing in my mind, her dismissive gaze, the barely concealed smirks, and the palpable silence that surrounded me. Instead of succumbing to the weight of rejection, I resolved to transform that searing pain into the fuel for a radical reinvention of my life. I knew that I had to reclaim not only my dignity but also the future that I had worked so tirelessly to build. Over the next several weeks, I embarked on a journey that would challenge every fiber of my being, forcing me to dig deep, face my vulnerabilities head-on, and ultimately rewrite the narrative of my existence. My first step was to confront the emotional devastation head-on. I isolated myself in the quiet hours of the night, when the hum of the city was distant and the darkness allowed raw emotion to surface without pretension. I sat at my desk in the dim light, a single lamp casting long shadows across the pages of my journal. There, I poured out every bitter thought, every painful memory of that evening, each word a cathartic release of the anger, humiliation, and deep sorrow that had been building inside me for years. I wrote about the nights I had spent working late into the early hours, sacrificing sleep and personal time in the belief that every moment of effort would contribute to a shared, promising future. I recorded the moments when I had silently hoped that my contributions would be recognized and celebrated, only to have them dismissed with a careless remark that I was not good enough. With each stroke of the pen, I began to see that my pain was not a dead end but a turning point, a moment that demanded I stand up for myself and reclaim my identity. Parallel to this emotional reckoning, I immersed myself in my work like never before. I threw myself into every project with a renewed, almost desperate vigor, determined to prove that my abilities and contributions were invaluable. My days began before sunrise with solitary runs through the quiet city streets. The cool air and rhythmic pounding of my feet provided a meditative escape, a time to reflect on my aspirations and muster the courage to face the challenges ahead. Those early morning runs became my sanctuary, a time when I would silently affirm that my life was mine to control. I allowed the solitude to strip away the pain and reveal a quiet determination that had been lying dormant under layers of neglect and unrecognized effort. At work, I resolved to transform every slight into an opportunity for growth. I reviewed every detail of the projects I had painstakingly developed, scrutinizing the data, the strategies, and the creative ideas that had once been mine alone. I began to take on leadership roles, volunteering for the most challenging assignments that required innovation and critical thinking. Each meeting, each presentation was approached with a renewed sense of purpose, a mission to showcase my true capabilities, to let the quality of my work speak for itself. I began to craft proposals with meticulous care, ensuring that every metric, every forecast, and every design element was not just accurate but groundbreaking. I recognized that if I could demonstrate undeniable excellence in every aspect of my work, then no amount of dismissive glances or offhand comments could ever diminish my value again. One particular project stands out in my memory, a high-profile campaign that could potentially transform our company's standing in the market. I led a small, dedicated team tasked with developing a comprehensive strategy that would not only boost sales but also reposition our brand entirely. I spent weeks gathering market data, brainstorming innovative approaches, and rehearsing the pitch until I was certain every word would resonate with our stakeholders. The night before the presentation, I barely slept. My mind was a storm of anticipation, determination, and an undercurrent of residual hurt. When the day arrived, I stepped into the boardroom with a calm that belied the tumult of emotions inside me. Every slide of my presentation, every statistic, and every visual element was a declaration that my work was the lifeblood of our company. The room, once filled with casual skepticism, slowly transformed into an arena of admiration. The investors' nods, the enthusiastic applause, and the subsequent accolades were not just professional milestones, they were the tangible proof that I had transformed humiliation into an unstoppable drive for excellence. Even as my career began to soar, the emotional battle raged on. There were days when the sting of that wedding, the memory of being publicly shamed, would resurface unexpectedly. In those moments, I would retreat to a quiet corner of my home, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating my journal as I allowed myself to feel the full spectrum of my emotions. I explored the depths of my grief and the sharp edges of my anger, understanding that true healing required embracing every facet of the experience. I started to see that the pain of rejection was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the depth of my capacity to love and to strive for better. Therapy sessions provided a structured space to unpack these emotions, and over time, I learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or excusing the betrayal, it was about freeing myself from the chains of resentment that threatened to hold me back. I began to replace bitterness with a quiet, resilient hope that my future could be rebuilt, not as a reaction to the past, but as an evolution of my true self. My personal transformation extended well beyond the confines of the office. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with over the years, those who had always seen the real me, the person behind the professional facade. We met in cozy cafes, took long walks through city parks, and spent hours in earnest conversation about life, love, and the hidden strength it takes to overcome betrayal. Their support was a balm to my wounded pride, a constant reminder that my worth was not determined by the dismissive words of a single person, but by the love and respect of those who truly cared. In these gatherings, I found a renewed sense of community, a realization that I was not alone in my struggles, that others had faced similar betrayals and emerged stronger. Their empathy and encouragement became integral to my healing process, reinforcing the belief that I deserved a future filled with genuine connections and unwavering self-respect. At the same time, I sought creative outlets to channel the complex tapestry of my emotions. I returned to writing, a passion that had once been my refuge during turbulent times, and began to document my journey with a raw, unfiltered honesty. Late at night, in the quiet solitude of my study, I poured my heart onto paper, essays and journal entries that captured the depth of my pain, the moments of self-doubt, and the eventual rise of an unbreakable spirit. I even started a private blog where I shared snippets of my experience with a small, supportive audience. The outpouring of messages from readers who had faced similar heartaches affirmed that my struggle was not in vain, that my story resonated on a universal level. Each comment, each note of solidarity, was a reminder that vulnerability could be a source of immense strength. I began to integrate all these experiences into a new, structured routine that balanced work, introspection, and self-care. My mornings were dedicated to solitary runs through the quiet city, the rhythmic pounding of my feet serving as both meditation and a physical testament to my resolve. Afternoons were consumed by work, where every challenge was met with an intensity that reflected my newfound determination. Evenings were reserved for quiet reflection. Hours spent reading, writing, and engaging in therapy, each moment a deliberate step toward healing. This disciplined routine not only restored order to my life but also gave me the clarity to focus on my long-term goals. Gradually, the transformation within me began to manifest tangibly. My renewed focus and relentless drive led to a series of professional breakthroughs that steadily rebuilt my reputation. I secured new projects, received accolades from superiors, and even earned a promotion that symbolized the culmination of my hard work. Each accomplishment was a powerful affirmation that my worth was undeniable, that I was capable of rising above the shallow judgments and betrayals that had once defined my world. With every achievement, the painful memories of that humiliating wedding gradually receded into the background, replaced by the brilliant light of success and self-respect. As the months turned into a year, I started to see my life taking shape in ways I had never imagined. My financial portfolio began to stabilize and grow, a testament to the meticulous strategies I had implemented. I revisited my long-held dreams and started setting new, ambitious goals for the future. Ones that were not dictated by past betrayals but inspired by my own vision of success. I reconnected with mentors, attended workshops on leadership, and began to explore opportunities for growth that would further cement my place as a leader in my field. Every step, every decision was a conscious effort to build a future that was wholly and unapologetically mine. Even as I celebrated professional victories and rebuilt my inner world, I remained mindful of the lessons learned from the experience. I documented every stage of my journey in a series of detailed journal entries, chronicles of pain, growth, and triumph that served as a personal roadmap for resilience. I often reread these pages, each line a powerful reminder that I had turned every bitter moment into a stepping stone toward a brighter tomorrow. The scars of betrayal, once a source of overwhelming pain, had become badges of honor, symbols of the strength it takes to reclaim one's life after being cast aside. Through it all, I began to see the transformation not as an isolated incident but as part of a larger narrative of human resilience. I reached out to support groups, shared my experiences at local gatherings, and discovered that many others had faced similar betrayals, and had risen above them. Their stories, interwoven with my own, formed a tapestry of hope and perseverance. I realized that by embracing my pain and channeling it into a relentless drive for success, I was not only healing myself but also inspiring others to do the same. In the midst of this renaissance, I also allowed myself moments of reflection and quiet celebration. I would often find a peaceful spot, sometimes in a park, sometimes on the balcony of my apartment, where I could watch the sunset and let the beauty of the changing sky remind me that every ending is merely the beginning of something new. I learned to savor these moments of calm, understanding that true strength lies in the ability to find hope amidst chaos. The journey was far from over, but with every new day, I felt a growing certainty that I was on the path to a future defined by my own dreams and hard-won achievements. Every step of this process, every late night spent in the glow of a computer screen or the soft light of a desk lamp, built a foundation for a new life. I was transforming the deep, searing pain of betrayal into the impetus for a rebirth, a reawakening of my true potential. I began to see that my value was not diminished by someone else's shallow perceptions. Instead, it was amplified by the relentless pursuit of my own vision. With each new project, every challenge overcome, and every supportive conversation, I was gradually reclaiming the identity that had been overshadowed by deceit. That morning, as I awoke to a sky streaked with the soft hues of dawn, I knew that every ounce of pain, every tear shed in those long, lonely nights had been leading me to this triumphant moment, a moment when I would no longer be defined by the bitterness of the past, but by the radiant promise of a future entirely my own. Today I was getting married to someone who cherished every piece of me, someone who saw the value in my hard-won resilience and unyielding spirit. The thought of my wife, who once declared she was too good for me, now forced to watch from afar as I embarked on a new chapter, filled me with both a quiet satisfaction and a profound sense of liberation. I had spent countless days, and many nights, transforming the betrayal into a driving force that reshaped my very existence. I recalled the searing humiliation at that family gathering when her dismissive words had cut me to the core, and I remembered the relentless journey of self-discovery that followed. The echoes of those painful moments had fueled every decision I made in the wake of that injustice. I dedicated myself to my work with an intensity that surprised even me, turning every setback into a stepping stone toward success. I revisited old ambitions with renewed clarity, restructured my financial future with meticulous precision, and rebuilt my identity from the ruins of shattered trust. Each day, as I rose early for solitary runs beneath an awakening sky and spent evenings in quiet reflection, I gathered strength from the knowledge that my worth was not determined by someone else's shallow judgment. In the months that followed, I reconnected with the parts of myself that had long been silenced by compromise. I embraced the creative outlets I had once abandoned, writing, painting, even playing the guitar, to express the swirling mix of emotions that had both haunted and propelled me. I allowed my journal to capture every raw detail of my journey, from the depths of despair to the exhilarating milestones at work, and from the bitter taste of betrayal to the sweetness of self-empowerment. Those pages, filled with honest confessions and bold declarations of self-worth, became the blueprint for a new future, a future that I was determined to shape on my own terms. I no longer needed validation from anyone. I had discovered that the true measure of success lay in the courage to pursue your dreams relentlessly, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. At work, my transformation was undeniable. I ascended to leadership roles with a quiet confidence that silenced any lingering doubts. My innovative ideas and tireless dedication earned me accolades and promotions that reaffirmed my capability. I led projects that not only bolstered our company's reputation but also inspired my colleagues to strive for excellence. Every boardroom meeting, every strategic decision I made, became a testament to the fact that I was no longer the man who had been dismissed and devalued. I was a force, a visionary who had turned personal tragedy into a powerful drive for professional triumph. Yet, amidst the whirlwind of career success and financial recovery, my heart continued its quiet, steady metamorphosis. I slowly learned that the journey of healing was not linear. It was a mosaic of small victories interspersed with moments of raw vulnerability. I sought solace in therapy, where I learned to forgive not for her sake, but for mine, to release the heavy chains of resentment that had threatened to anchor me in perpetual sorrow. Through gentle guidance and deep introspection, I came to understand that the scars of betrayal were not signs of weakness but symbols of survival. They were proof that I had endured, learned, and ultimately risen from the ashes of a love that had once promised forever. The turning point came when I began to imagine a future that was not haunted by the past but illuminated by possibility. I started to nurture new relationships, forging bonds with people who valued authenticity, kindness, and resilience. I rekindled friendships that had been dimmed by years of silent suffering, and I allowed myself to be open to the warmth of genuine connection. Every shared laugh, every heartfelt conversation was a reminder that my journey was far from over, and that love, in its truest, most unselfish form, was still waiting for me. Slowly, I began to see that the pain inflicted by her betrayal had also prepared me for a love that would appreciate me for exactly who I was, strong, determined, and full of unyielding potential. As the days turned into weeks and then into the final month before my new wedding, I devoted myself to creating a life that was a celebration of my reclaimed identity. I poured every bit of my energy into the planning of the wedding, a symbol of my fresh start and a public declaration that I was ready to embrace happiness on my own terms. I chose a venue that resonated with my newfound optimism, a spacious garden bathed in soft light, where the beauty of nature met the promise of new beginnings. I handpicked every detail, from the floral arrangements that whispered of resilience to the carefully curated music that set a tone of hopeful celebration. Every decision, every meticulous plan was a testament to the transformation I had undergone, a stark contrast to the life I had known, where I was overshadowed and devalued. The days leading up to the wedding were a flurry of activity, each moment infused with anticipation and a quiet joy that I had not felt in years. I reconnected with my closest friends and family members, sharing my journey with raw honesty and receiving words of encouragement that further bolstered my resolve. The conversations were deep and sincere, reflections on past struggles and affirmations of the bright future ahead. I realized that my triumph was not just personal, it was also a beacon for those who had ever been told they were not good enough, a living reminder that resilience can transform even the darkest of betrayals into the light of new beginnings. On the morning of my wedding day, I woke with a profound sense of clarity and gratitude. As I prepared to step into a new chapter of my life, I took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought me here, the long nights of pain, the tireless work, the therapy sessions filled with raw vulnerability, and the countless small victories that had cumulatively forged my new identity. I dressed slowly, each piece of clothing a silent affirmation of my worth. With every mirror I passed, I saw not the scars of the past, but the reflection of a man reborn, a man who had turned betrayal into the cornerstone of his success. At the ceremony, as I walked down the aisle toward the love of my life, a person who cherished me for all that I was, I felt the weight of every harsh word lifted from my shoulders. In that moment, I realized that the very pain that had once threatened to break me had, in fact, been the spark that ignited my journey toward greatness. The guests' eyes shone with admiration and respect, not for the man I had once been, but for the man I had become. I saw in their faces a collective acknowledgement that true strength lies not in avoiding hardship, but in rising above it with unwavering resolve. My wife, who had once thought herself too good for me, was now forced to confront a truth she could no longer ignore. She watched from a distance, her own future now shrouded in uncertainty, while I embraced a love built on mutual respect and genuine connection. The echoes of her past dismissals were nothing compared to the vibrant promise of the life I was stepping into. Every tear, every painful memory had transformed into a stepping stone that carried me to this moment of undeniable triumph. As the celebration unfolded in a cascade of joyful music, heartfelt toasts, and the laughter of loved ones, I felt a deep, unshakable certainty. I was in control of my destiny. I had turned betrayal into an opportunity for reinvention, and I had built a future that was defined not by the shallow judgments of the past, but by the unyielding pursuit of my own dreams. I looked around at the faces of friends and family, all gathered to celebrate this new chapter, and I knew that my journey had not only restored my self-worth, it had redefined it entirely. In that final moment, as I exchanged vows with the person who recognized my true value, I felt the culmination of every struggle and every victory. I realized that the path to greatness is often paved with unexpected trials and heart-wrenching betrayals, but that those challenges, when met with resilience and determination, ultimately lead to a future that is as bright as it is uniquely your own. I had reclaimed my identity, rebuilt my career, and forged a legacy of strength that would stand as a testament to the power of never giving up. Standing there, amidst the cheers of a loving community and the gentle glow of a new dawn, I knew that my destiny was mine to create. Every painful memory was now a chapter in the epic story of my rebirth, a story that I would continue to write with courage, passion, and an unyielding belief in my own worth. And as I stepped forward into a future filled with endless promise, I did so with a quiet, resolute conviction that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would always rise again, stronger and more determined than ever before.